You know what I could really go for right now? Literally anything that comes in a McDonald's carton, wrapper, or bag. Or a McDonald's cup. Yes, any of those items should do it.
We've got your cravings covered. Now stop in for the flaky Filet-O-Fish, the crispy snack wrap, or large fries for just $2.99. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey, it's Cole Swindell. After I give everything I've got to land a perfect vocal, I usually take 5 before jumping into the next track. And I've learned exactly how to recharge in that time. Some folks grab coffee. I hit a quick good luck spin. Next thing you know, the break is just as fun as laying down the track. A better break makes for a better take. Need a break? Let's chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus TNC Supply. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 4, and today we've got a very special guest with us. He is one of the legends in the game. He's a Hall of Famer, wrestling coach, Hall of Famer. He's done it for so long, he's probably forgotten more about coaching football than any of us will ever know about it. He's currently the AD at Flint River Academy. Coach Kirk Hoffman, thanks for being with us.
I appreciate you having me on.
Well, Coach, tell everybody where you grew up.
I grew up in DeKalb County, Clarkston High School. Now, I'm an old-timer. That's way back in the 70s, and I was coached by some old-timers, Jack Miller, which, he coached well into his 80s, and then Tommy Springer, who legendary coach over there in Loganville.
And you went to Clemson University, correct?
Yes, sir. I tell you, I was really fortunate. I went to Clemson on a wrestling scholarship, but from 80 to 85, it was such a small school that all the athletes had to hang out with each other. And so I was in class with William Perry and Chucky Richardson and those guys. So, we were in the weight room together. We had class together, and we did a lot of stuff together. And that was, kind of a neat time to be at Clemson.
Yeah, I grew up in Augusta, and I remember William Perry was like a legend because Aiken was not far. And, we knew his family were brick masons, and, they did work. And Clemson was only an hour and a half from Augusta up the road, so there was a lot of Clemson people in Augusta. So did you know all along that you wanted to teach and coach, or was that just something that you figured out along the way? My dad died at an early age, and when I went into high school, I was basically raised by my coaches, and I kind of got that itch from them. I knew I wanted to go into coaching, and back then, the coach you had to teach, so you had to get that degree and work yourself through the channels, and then see if you could find a job where your teaching degree met with your coaching. So, what was your first job out of college?
My first job, I was hired, kind of tell you, this is kind of different. I was hired in April by a guy named Jim Keith at Fayette County High School. He hired me to be the wrestling coach. And, back then, if you coached any sport, you also coached football. That just came with the territory. And, well, he hired me in April, and he left in May. And the new guy came in was none other than Conrad Nix.
Really?
Yes. And he came in, and my first staff that I was on was Conrad Nix, the head coach, Steve Perdue, was an assistant, his first job. Sam Pickett, who was, at Rome and all those places, he'd come out of college. So, I was fortunate that I got in under some really good football coaches that knew the game, knew how to handle people, knew how to handle administration.
Man, it's insane. I was at Northside before going to Taylor County with Coach Byram, and the touch that Coach Nix still has on that place is just the effect that he's had, and all the coaches he's coached or coached with, and the effect he's had on them. It's just amazing. I mean, I had no idea that that's who you started with.
Right. And, I was telling my kids who are now grown, and, I think along the trail, you learn a lot from different coaches. And one of the first things I learned from him, now I started with him as a JV coach, was we all use the same terminology. He said the worst thing that you can do to a kid is confusing. I mean, if we called a kid a defensive end, we all use defensive end. Everything was the same terminology, so that kid heard the same thing, and there was no confusion. And that has stuck with me for 39 years.
So how long were you at Fayette County with that bunch?
Conrad only lasted a year. And then Sam Pickett, who was already on staff, took the job, and I was with him for 2 years. And then Sam left and went with Gary Guthrie down at LaGrange. My wife grew up with a guy named Kim Braswell. Georgia fans know about him. He was the kicker and up at Georgia and back in the late 60s and 70s. So I went with him for 9 years at Henry County. Another one where I learned a lot of football. And I don't mean as much X and O's with Kim as how to handle administration, how to handle teachers, and then with parents. So I was with him for 9 years and cut my teeth there. Had some great teams, beat Marist when they were 33-0 to win the region, and made it deep in the playoffs a couple of times. So, again, the good Lord was shining on me and put me in a good situation. Like a lot of coaches think, hey, I'm ready to be a head coach. I've been here 2 years, I'm ready. And what I learned was I wasn't ready. Even after 9 years, there's a huge difference stepping into that title as head coach, and I learned so much under Kim Braswell.
Well, did you have one side of the ball that you specialized on in those 11, 12 years, or did you mix it up?
I mixed it up. Like I said, I spent that first year as a JV coach at Fayette County, and then when Sam Pickett took over the job, I started off as just a defensive end coach, and then we had a coaching change, and I went to the secondary. And then when I went with Kim Braswell, Kim said you're coaching both sides. So I was an offensive line coach. Now, I'm a little short guy, not the biggest guy in the world, but that's the position I love the most. I was coaching the offensive line, and then on defense, I was coaching linebackers. And then as years went, I became the defensive coordinator. So my last 3 years over at Henry County, I was the defensive coordinator. And, one of the things that I learned from Kim Braswell was this. When we would go to the Glacier clinics, if you were a defensive-minded coach, you had to go to the offensive meetings. And if you were an offensive-minded coach, you had to go to the defensive meetings. And, that stuck with me because what I learned is I can't stop somebody on offense if I don't understand how that offense works.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And then, and the same on defense. When I was on being an offensive coach, how does that odd front work? How's that even front work? What's a quarter, half? What's a 3 deep? What I'm saying? So with Kim, you always went to the other side of the ball to learn the other side, but you coached your side.
Right.
And then after that, I went through whatever coach goes through. We had the big administration change, and Kim Braswell stepped down, and Again, the good Lord blessed me, and I grew up with Mike Parrish, who people that know Mike, coached Hines Ward and had all those great teams at Forest Park. Well, I went with him to Jackson, and I was there for 3 years, and I became the offensive coordinator. Had some great years there, went deep in the playoffs, and then in 2000, right place at the right time. I've been in 15 years. I got my first head job at Spalding High School.
So you started Spalding High School, correct?
Exactly.
What was that like, getting to start a new school? I've always thought that'd be like a lot of fun.
It is. Now, I don't know starting one like Spalding is, because I walked into Spalding and we didn't even have a school yet. We're practicing over by the old Memorial Stadium. The community ain't ready for 2 high schools. People in the coaching world will know this, but that tradition at Griffin is something else now. It's different. And, so I come in there and we opened up as just 9th and 10th grade. So we were able to grow a grade every year. So after my 3rd year there, we made that deep run in the playoffs, made it to the Dome. And there are people in this town ready to run me out because I was having some success, and that Big G wasn't. And so you had to learn a little bit on how to handle community then. And I was fortunate that I was able to hire probably one of the best staffs I ever had with Vic Barrick on defense, and Rodney Satterfield on my offensive coordinator, and then a guy named Chris Ramsey, who was at Georgia Tech for years, was my special teams coach. And, I was able to sit back and be a head coach and let them coach. Because I think when you become a head coach, the biggest downfall of a head coach is you don't get to coach as much as you have to organize and be a CEO.
Was Strap ever with you when you were at Spalding?
Who?
Coach Strap?
No.
Okay, he wasn't there with you?
No, he came in behind me.
Okay, he was behind you. Okay.
Right, and I'll tell you what, now he's a good coach.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't remember the timing on that because I just started in 90, 97, 96, 96. So I remember when y'all went on that run.
Right.
And it was interesting because there weren't too many new schools. Like y'all were like one of the first newer schools, in the Atlanta area.
Right.
To open up and then to have that kind of success that quick. I mean, how'd you, going from a JV program, how did you take me through how you did? Like, what was the plan?
Well,
going from no field to the Dome in 3 years.
Well, I was fortunate that I'd hired a good staff. I think that's one. 2 is we were all on the same page, and it was the first year. It was not worry about winning as much as teaching football. I think we get away from that a little bit. I mean, we stayed in individual probably a lot more than we did any kind of team. We were in group a whole lot more than team. Just teaching. We call it the 3S: stance, step, and start. And if you can't get that right, we're not going any further. So we were able to slow things down because we were adding a class every year. So when we got to that 3rd year, 2003, I mean, we were going through practice 90 miles an hour because those kids had been there. You know what I'm saying? We weren't losing anybody from the year before. We were just adding cards to our deck.
Right.
And then, things fell in our lap. People don't realize this, and we're in the playoffs. And what people don't realize is first round of the playoffs, I have to play Carrollton. I knocked them off. Then the second round, I got to play Grayson. And we're tied with, about 30 seconds to go, and I line up for a 53-yard field goal. And Mickey Kahn over at Grayson, he calls timeout. So we go back out. I call timeout. Then we go back out, and Mickey's over there hollering, "Don't rush, play the fake." We roll the snap back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If they'd have rushed, they'd have blocked it. But my kicker just had all day in them, you know what I'm saying? And he hit a perfect one. And my son was my ball boy, and he's standing under the goalpost, and his eyes lit up. You know, that was the turning point for Spalding High School right there. And then, you know, of course, we went on after that and won 2 more and went to the Dome.
I bet that was amazing for those kids and that community, just to show that somebody besides Griffin, I mean, I know it's Griffin, but just to show that somebody else could do it, you know, that's just,
right.
That was cool.
Well, you know, for me, we took a team that a lot of those kids weren't the great middle school kids, you know what I'm saying? Because those good middle school kids stayed at Griffin, and they should have, rightly so. You know, I mean, this is Griffin, and I didn't have a D1 kid on that team, but they had all stuck it out for 3 years. They'd grown to like each other, and just being able to go.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Through that maturity together, you know, 9th and 10th, and then 9, 10, 11, then 9, 10, 11, 12. And, you know, when they were seniors, it was such a huge community family atmosphere at that school.
So how long did you stay at Spalding?
I left in 2006. I was there 6 years. Again, if you've been in coaching long enough, when that administration changes, ain't nobody safe. And so I left and got the head job at Alcovey, which is another brand new school.
So you started 2 brand new schools.
Exactly.
Well, you kind of knew how to do it, though. You did it once.
Well, the problem is this school opened up different. I get first week of March, I get approved. They tell me, Coach, we're going to open you up 9-10. I said, all right, I'm fired up. They came back at the end of March and said, no, we're going to have to go 9, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and put me in a region. And then they told me on the same phone call, but the seniors can stay at their other schools. They don't have to come to you.
Oh, ouch.
Yes. So I got put in a region with Clark Central, Cedar Shoals, Habersham Central when they had the King, had that great team that made it to the Dome. Just a loaded region. I had 6 seniors.
Yeah, I was about to say it was essentially a JV team.
Right. And of those 6, 4 had played football before. 2 had just, hey, we'll try it. But probably the craziest thing that ever happened to me in football happened. Again, we're practicing over at the county stadium because we don't have a field and the school's not even open. And been practicing all summer, and it's late July, and we're getting ready for team pictures. And the only senior I had that was pretty good now, they come over and they say, Coach, his grandmother's over here, wants to talk to you. So I walk over and she says, Coach, he's got to go home. So what? He's got to go home. So I walk over to the kid and the kid says, Coach, no, don't do this. I said, look, you got to go home. I never saw the kid again. And about, 4 weeks into school, guy from the county office comes over and says, Coach, I feel like we need to tell you what happened. He said that kid was in the federal witness protection plan.
Oh, my goodness.
And when that, y'all were taking pictures and all we know is they withdrew everybody in the family. And so nobody knows where that kid is today.
Holy smokes.
And he's the only kid I got. I mean,
he's your dude.
He's my dude. And every away game, Coach, I drove my car. You know why? I visited every hospital on the away game.
Mm.
I mean, because we just, we were almost all 9th graders.
Yeah, it was like a MASH unit.
Yes. Somebody was getting hurt. But again, 3 years in, here we go. We're winning the region, knocking off Griffin, big win for the program. You know what I'm saying? But it still did the same thing. There was a sense of family. Those kids had practiced together, and we were able to keep everything in place for 3 years without having a graduating class.
And undoubtedly, you kept the 3 S's.
Yes. Same practice form. Everything across the board. Was very fortunate. Had some quality coaches. I'm sitting in the room with my coaches, and this substitute teacher walks by. He's about 6'4", and he looks his head in the door, and he says, "Can I listen in?" I said, "Sure." So he does his thing. When it's over with, he walks up to the board, and he says, "Coach, if you move this kid over here, that's going to be real close to the old 4-6. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Let me call Buddy tonight, and I'll get back with you." And I'm thinking, Buddy? I said, "Who's your buddy?" He said, "I played for Buddy Ryan."
Oh, what you talking about?
Well, Coach, you ready for this? NFL Rookie of the Year in 1988. All-Pro 1988, played corner at 6'4". His name's Eric McMillan. Well, you know what I did, don't you?
You're hired.
You're hired. Here's the community classes. And, just that's how lucky I was. You know what I'm saying? That's how lucky I've been in my coaching career.
Eric McMillan, you mind if I get on the board? Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I'm going to call Buddy. Oh, you're going to call your buddy. You're probably rolling your eyes like, oh, here we go. Buddy Ryan. You fall out of your chair.
And we're doing it's spring. And he says, "Coach, I'm going to have to miss Thursday and Friday of spring practice." And I said, "What for?" He said, "Well, I got to go to that golf tournament up in New York for the Jets. It's the old quarterback that was there, Joe Namath, charity golf." So he starts sending me pictures of him and Joe Namath and all these, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm sitting there going, man. But,
can't get mad about it.
No, and he's still, I got him into coaching, and he's still coaching today. He's at Woodward Academy. I guess I got him in 2012, and between 2012 and 2020, he coached one of my kids who's now in the pros. He coached Stokes played at Georgia, that's in the pros for the Green Bay Packers at corner. And a kid named Devon Edwards. He's coached 3 kids that have made it to the pros in the secondary. I mean, he's as good as they come.
Man,
so
that's awesome.
I have been lucky with my coaching hires. So then I get to retirement age at 2016, and I said, you know what? Time to go. And then this private school down here, which is in that private school league, said, "Hey, you want to come coach?" And started off just coaching football, and I got in it. I've been in it for 9 years, and it's keeps me active, keeps me busy, and I'm still coaching today. I don't know if I can get it out of my blood.
So over all those years of coaching football, did you keep coaching wrestling, or did you?
No, I kept my finger in the wrestling. You know what I'm saying? I coached, when I was an assistant, I was the head wrestling coach. And then when I became the head football coach, I wasn't the head wrestling coach. I was just the assistant. It's tough to be a head coach.
Right.
And, coach a second sport, just because there's an overlap. Now, I think you can be possibly a head football coach and a track coach because you get that winter break. But, to do a sport that overlaps with another one, but I've all the way up till I retired in 2016. I was either the head coach of wrestling or an assistant.
Well, you're an old school, old head. Talk a little bit about how important you think it is for kids to play other sports, especially like wrestling. And you were a wrestler. I mean, how important is it to have that program in your athletic program to help develop athletes?
Well, to me,
I mean, I know you're probably a little biased, but it's...
No, I truly believe this. I think that if you want the culture at your school to be a winning culture, there's two things you got to do. You got to play as many sports as possible, and you've got to have a weight room. And every coach in that program, whether it be a basketball coach, a volleyball coach, a track coach, has to be sold on that principle. Because one, to me, you've got to have the weight room. That's just a must. And then the second one is kids have got to learn to compete. I tell people all the time, one of the greatest events that I think that there is in Georgia high school is to go down and watch the state track meet. Two kids line up at the 100-yard dash. Somebody's going to step up and somebody's going to gut down. And that's called learning how to compete. And what's happening is we don't want to teach kids how to compete. We think that we can make them a better athlete by going to personal trainers. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you got to learn to compete. And I think that's what when you do multiple sports, that's what you teach. And then the weight room makes you a better athlete, just physically.
So what's your overall coaching philosophy? I mean, if somebody sat you down, like if you were interviewing today for a head coaching job and they said, Coach, what's your philosophy? I mean, outside of the weight room, what would you say, what would your answer be? My philosophy coaching football is the same as it was when I was coaching wrestling and stuff. I want to bring a kid in. When he leaves my program, he's going to be an outstanding human being. He's going to be a great dad. He's going to be a great brother. He's going to be a great son. When he's 25, people are going to say, man, I admire that guy. All right. And by doing those things, I'm teaching him the commitment. I'm teaching him to be loyal. I'm teaching him time management. If I can get that taught to anybody, then I've got the ability to make him a better person, make him a better athlete. And if I can get a group of kids to be better athletes, I got a chance to win. 100%.
I tell my son who's coaching now, if you walk into a high school and there's 20 kids in that 9th grade class playing football, if you can keep 18 of those kids are still playing when they're seniors, you're going to make a run in the playoffs. If you have 10, you're going to be a 500 team when they're seniors. And the difference is because if you keep 18 out of 20 or 20 out of 22, you've got kids who have bought into the program, that are committed, that are loyal, and they know how to do time management. I go back and look at teams now. I look at that Manchester team they got down there. What a team they got. I think he's got 18 seniors that have been playing for 4 years. They ought to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we've lost the fact, and don't get me wrong, it's a trickle-down effect from the colleges, but the loyalty and the commitment factor, we're not teaching that anymore. We're teaching kids, hey, go out and get what you can get, and if you can't, move on and find it somewhere else.
Yeah, the portal opening up the other day and all these people, taking their ball and going somewhere else instead of fighting through a little adversity.
Exactly right. And is it easier to, they're taking the easy route. Life's about battling. Every day's a battle. You either battle or you find the easy route out. And if you keep doing the easy route out, you're eventually not going to find success.
Yeah, somebody told me once that, and this might offend a lot of people, and if it does, I don't really care, but somebody told me that was why, during my generation's time, we saw such a high, and you continue to see such a high divorce rate, is because, not all the time, but a lot of the times that's the easy way out.
Sure.
Instead of fighting through it or working through it, or fighting's probably a bad word, but you know what I'm saying. Instead of working through your problem and hashing it out or figuring out what you got to do what's best for the whole family, the easy way is to walk away.
Right. Well, think about it. If you're committed to it, if you're committed to it and you're loyal to it and you have time management, you're going to battle through that.
Correct. Yeah, your philosophy is going to absolutely create strong young men. Well, let me ask you this. How many times, because you're the athletic director as well now, how many times when you were at Spalding, when you were at Alcovey, were you the athletic director and head football coach, or were you just
I was at Alcovey. I did it at Alcovey.
So how do you juggle those two things? Or do you enjoy being the AD and the head football coach, or would you rather just be one and not the other?
You know, there's good and bad to both. You know, as the AD, you have the ability to control everything. You know what I'm saying? You have the ability to go in and say, Coach, find a time to get these kids in the weight room. You know what I'm saying? You have that a little bit. When you're not that, then you're the football coach that the baseball coach or the basketball coach is going, all you care about is football. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Again, time management. You know, when I was the athletic director at Alcovey, which was a 6A school at the time, and then 7A, spring, 22 sports. It's a 7 to 10:30 job at night. You know, with buses and soccer here and tennis there. So that, you know, if you don't have time, you don't manage your time, you're in trouble. I think that's one key secret. I think the other one is your family at home has got to understand. I've been blessed. My wife was raised in an athletic family. Dad coached at Georgia Tech. Her mom was first Miss Georgia basketball back in the early 50s. Had an older brother, played pro soccer. Had another brother, was an All-American baseball at West Georgia. So, I mean, she grew up around it. You know, so she understands it and understood it. And then I was fortunate that at every stop I went, the coaches, it didn't bother them that my boys were there. You know, that they didn't get in the way. That both my boys, who are now coaching, went through it all. You know, they're my ball boy. They're riding their bike over to practice. My youngest son, kind of tell you, we were playing Perry, and I was at Alcovey, and he's a junior in high school. And we get on the bus, and my offensive coordinator's dad has a heart attack. So he's not going. So I get down there, and we're doing pregame, and he comes down there. Thomas, my son, comes down, and he, you know, hey, Coach, we're so-and-so. And I said, you know, told him what happened. He said, well, Dad, I'll go in the box and see if I can help you. I want you to know that little sucker called half that game and did a pretty good damn job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I mean, when I sat down to watch film, he's right there with me. You know, so, you know, and he loved it. And I was fortunate, again, you know, he loved it and he liked being around it. And my wife loved it, you know, that commitment from the family made it a whole lot easier.
Well, we talked a little bit off air before we came on about, you know, you heard Coach Flig's podcast and that you were buddies with him, and a lot of the guys, a common theme has been over the years with the addition of huddle, as we got away from swapping film and meeting at gas stations and McDonald's and the relationships that coaches used to have. Is that something that you've noticed over the years that has really changed about the coaching business?
Yes. You know, see, when I first got in and I was that JV coach at Fayette County, I was the one I was the one that took the film, drove to Phoenix City, dropped it off while they developed it. But one of the neat things was there was probably 25 coaches in that parking lot waiting for 3 hours. It was a coaching clinic at 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, while everybody was waiting to get their film developed. And being young, I learned this: keep my mouth shut and keep my ears open. I learned a lot of football. And then now when huddles come, the best thing about huddle, Mama don't mind you watching film at home.
Correct.
But she don't, hey, I got to go to school to watch film. She gets upset about that. But you can stay here at home and watch film all you want. You know what I'm saying? You're in the back room watching film. She's happy as a lark. So, that's a two-sided sword. There was a lot of friendships made. I thought the networking was a whole lot easier back then. Everybody, because you had to see everybody, either Saturday morning during the trade or waiting to get that film, traded. I can remember Conrad Nix telling me and Jim Bailey, hey, ride down to Noonan, Max will be down there, Coach Bass, and get that film. So we drive down there, we walk in here to get the film. We start walking out, and I don't know if you ever met Max Bass, but he looked over, he said, where y'all going? I said, well, we got to take this film back. He said, no, sir. Y'all can watch that film, but you can go right in that room and watch all you want. And we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah, it ain't leaving the premises.
Right. Can I call Coach Nix and tell him what's happening? But I thought, huddles made it easier in some aspects, but I think it's taken away a lot of the networking that the coaches did have from way back then.
Well, I was talking to somebody yesterday about another thing. This will take you back a little bit, Coach. The Blue Book. That was another way we networked.
You better believe it.
Boy, that blue book, because we were talking about how you'd look up and you'd go, where's old so-and-so at? And you'd look through there, man, that thing was like a Christmas present when we got that at the beginning of the year.
Well, you want me to tell you what else it was? It was like everybody's address.
Absolutely.
Coach, where you coach? Well, are you coach? Well, just go to the Blue Book and start, because, that to me is one of the things that a lot of people don't like about coaching. But for me, again, I had the family that was willing to do it. Hey, I go back and think of, I was at Fayette, then I was at Henry County, then I was at Jackson, then I was at Spalding, then I was at Alcovey. But I interviewed with Coach Tomberlin down at Lowndes. I interviewed with Bill Bailey over at Central Carrollton. Just that book right there was everybody's address book for the longest time.
Well, that and GACA clinics, you could always roll up in there and find a job if you were willing to work and talk to folks. Well,
that's one of the things that, again, I was telling my son who's coaching now, I said, hey, when you go to these Glacier clinics, find them clinics outside that, where all these coaches are sitting down at a table, and just keep your mouth shut and listen, and you'll learn just as much football.
I'll tell you what, I remember one time, Rock Graziano and Tommy Walburn were in my room, and they got a grease marker and got up on the mirror and started drawing up 8-man front stuff. And I just sat there for 2.5 hours and learned.
Exactly.
And last year I did that, and one of the young coaches said, what are you doing? And I said, this is the way we used to do it. You're going to learn a heap more in here than you are listening to any of them jokers out there that are coaching kids that we ain't got.
Right.
That we can't get, that can do stuff that ours can't do.
Exactly. And I'll tell you who one of the best of that is old Mike Earwood. It was a star.
Oh, God, yes.
I can remember in 2006, I went to Tony Franklin, the spread clinic. Big spread. Here we go. And we're in Nashville, and we're up there, and I look over, and about 2 seats over is, what's his name from Coach Miller, from Gainesville. That's wing T guy.
Bruce Miller.
Bruce Miller. And we started talking. I said, Bruce, you're a wing T guy. He said, yeah, but he said, I got a quarterback. I got to go to the spread. He said, you ain't ever seen this kid I got coming now. He's going to be big time. It was old Deshaun Watson, you know?
Yeah.
And so we'd listened to Tony Franklin for a little while. And then he said, man, come on up to the room. Well, next thing you know, here we are drawing. You know, we're trying to take from the wing and mix it with the spread because we're both wing T diehards. But then, you know, we go to the next clinic and Tony's up there saying, you got to give it up now. If you're going to go to the spread, you got to sell out. And it was just, you know, I learned a lot of football in those 2 days just from Coach Miller.
Yeah, it's like David Thrower. I don't know if you know Coach Thrower.
I know David.
He's like my big brother. And we talk about it all the time how if you'll go up to the clinic, any clinic, with a plan, and you're like, all right, I'm going to find Coach Hoffman. I want to learn about the wing, and grab you and say, Coach, will you show me this? Any old head will be more than happy to sit down with you one-on-one or 1-on-3 or you and your staff in your room and clinic you. And you're going to learn a heap more doing that than you will listening to, say, not Kirby Smith, but you know what I'm saying. Any college coach that's going to sit up there going, well, you know, we've got this 6'7", you know, defensive end that can jump 85 inches and runs a 2.9 40, and you're sitting up there going, well, mine's 5'7", and he tries hard, and his mama's a good woman. She brings us macaroni salad on Thursdays. You know,
right.
I need to know how to coach him.
Exactly. Well, that's just like, you know, we went to a Georgia clinic. I'm not going to mention who the coach was. You know, they have all the high school state champion coaches at those things. And this guy won the state championship. He gets up on the board, and we're all listening. You know, he's going to teach us defense. And he writes 47. And he turns around and he says, I'm sorry, guys, this won't last long. He turns around, he puts a dot between the 4 and the 7. He said, we won this year because everybody on defense ran at least a 4.7 or better. I mean, he didn't try to blow smoke, and that's so true. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, his cards were better than anybody else's cards.
Coach, it reminds me of the old story everybody tells about when at the clinic one year, and Coach Brody, they'd won it down at Tifton. And they said he got up at the clinic, and they said he walked up there, he had a tumbler with an unspecified beverage inside of it. And he walked up there and he drew 11 little O's on the board with a center. I think he put them in I formation. And then he drew 11 great big X's up there. And he turned around and he said, my X's were bigger than everybody else's O's. And that's why we won the state championship. Thank you. And turned around, and that was it. That was his explanation on why they won.
Exactly. You know, and you know, going through these 39 years of coaching, I've learned, I took little nuggets from everybody. You know what I'm saying? Just nuggets from everybody here. And I guess when I was with Sam Pickett my third year in, and Sam, you know, we have that big coaches thing before the season starts, and he got us all in this room, and he says, guys, he said, listen, man, we all know that we're going to struggle. We just don't have it. He said, but what we can teach, that we can all teach, is these kids can line up correctly, have a great stance, and can run. They can run to the football. I don't care if they're on offense, defense. If we don't teach them at least how to line up and do things correctly, that's on us. That's coaching. He said, now, God-given ability is God-given, but we just don't have that. You know, and that's always stuck to me. You know, when I do my practice schedules, hey, guys, let's not get away from, you know, individual and teaching, you know, hey, this is how, you know, if it's front foot forward 6 inches, it's front foot forward 6 inches, and demand it, you know, and don't shortchange it because, well, he just can't do it. Well, find a way for him to get to do it. If not, help him find a way he can get there. You know, just those kind of nuggets all the way through that for me, you know, I think has helped me become a better coach. You know, I tell coaches this, and people look at me like, what are you talking about? to be a good coach, you've got to go through a 1-9 season.
Little adversity.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Have you ever tried to take a group of kids and you know, here we are in week 8, and you're playing another number 2 team in the state, and you ain't scored but 2 touchdowns. How do you get those kids motivated? You still got to teach them to compete.
You still got to play.
And you got to teach them loyalty. Hey, guys, we're committed to this. You know what I'm saying? But what you come to find out is that you become a better coach. The guy that raised me, the coach that raised me, a guy named Mike Chonko, when I told him, hey, I'm going to get into coaching. And I came home, and it was April. I graduated in August. That August, it was the April before. And he called me over to his house, and he said, Coach, and he said, Kirk, he said, I want to tell you something. He said, don't ever forget this. If you're going to coach, it's not what you can get the kids to obtain. No, it's not what the coaches can help you obtain, but what can you get the kids to obtain? If you're getting in there for your name to be all over the place and you want these kids to help you get that, you get out of coaching.
Coach, I play in the Lee Murray golf tournament that they have every year, GACA. Yep. I don't know if you play golf, but y'all you need to get all your old head buddies together and come down and play. It's going to be the week before the Masters this year, April 4th and 5th down at Little Oak Mogi.
Right.
Coach Herndon, Kenny
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See TNCs. 21+. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Or Bobby McAllister. I think Coach Holmes is Roger Holmes going to play. And the reason I say that is because it's great for my group and we got younger coaches showing up now too, to come listen, to close your mouth and open your 2 ears and your eyes and just listen to y'all tell us things like that, to remind us, because so many times now, especially, I think this younger generation of coaches, chest beaters and look at me and I'm going to yell and carry on the sideline, and instead of what are the kids doing? Right. Making the kids first, because they're what matter.
Exactly.
It ain't about us.
But I told somebody, we were talking about this Monday. I was with a group of coaches, and this kind of got brought up, and to me, it's a scary thought. The game of football hasn't changed, but everything around it has changed drastically. And that's a scary thought. That's just for me. You know what I'm saying? The portal, the NIL, you can agree with it, don't agree with it, doesn't matter. But it's made changes around sports. I can remember, starting off in 1985, everybody came to practice and they gave you everything they got, and they went home and mom and dad talked good about everything, you know what I'm saying? And it was a family thing. And now there's so much tugging at kids. And, I've got a grandson who's 4, and man, I don't know. I'm scared of what it's going to be like when he's 18 or 15.
Well, how much different was it for you when you transferred in from you retired from public school and start working at a private school? Is it just a smaller scaled version of everything's the same? It's just a smaller school and
right. Well, I tell you, like I told somebody when I started coaching in 1985, we would practice. We would go the 2 hours and 15, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and when practice was over, those kids went home. Mom and dad picked them up, and they all had a way home. Now, spin back 30 years later, and, I might get home at 9:30 because I had to take 6, 7 kids home. But when I went to the private school, my first 3 days coaching football at the private school, I came in, my wife said, "Are you coaching football?" I said, "Why?" "You've never been home this early." You know what I'm saying? Because when practice was over, those kids, they either got in their car and went home, or they had made arrangements for everybody to get home. But I think in the 9 years I've been at this private school, I've taken 2 kids home. There's the difference. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of problems, and there's problems in every situation. That doesn't change.
Right.
You got a good quarterback, you're gonna be pretty good. You got a good quarterback, you better find a system that you can win with. But it's just, it's a smaller version. Somebody told me this one time, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm at Alcovy, and I got 115 kids. 115 kids, and I've got 14 coaches plus me, 15. I go to this private school, and I've got 29 kids and 2 coaches plus me. I said, well, okay. I mean, I remember going in the weight room in that summer when I started, and I looked at one of the coaches that had been there. I said, when are the linemen coming in? He said, Coach, this is it. I said, what?
Right.
But that's the way it was when I first got in 1985.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you have 115 kids, how do you get them all in? How do you get them all, how do you get them all to buy in? How do you get them all to be committed? How do you get them all to be loyal? That's tough. And that's why I harp on that so much. I think that's what we have to, it's tough, guys. I understand it's tough. You're not a starter, son. I understand that. But you can be one. Just buy your time, keep working. Young coaches, same way. Coach, I think I'm ready to be a head coach. Be patient. Be patient. Don't take the, what I'm saying? What's a good opportunity for you might not be a good opportunity for me. Be patient. Your time will come.
And make sure you take the right one, because you might not get but one shot.
And you know what? You're exactly right. You know what I'm saying? And again, you never know when that shot's coming. I interviewed for a job, and I had it. There's no doubt I had it. And then one person in the county office wanted somebody else, and guess what? I didn't have it.
I tell people all the time, you don't ever know who's going to shoot you out of the saddle.
You're exactly right.
Because you never know who's lurking. You never know who's got a cousin-in-law or nephew that needs a job, or somebody. Or Eric McMillan walking the hallways that walks up and decides, hey, you know what? I think I want to be the head coach.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You're right. I go back and look, Coach Pardue bought his time, stepped into a great situation in LaGrange. Sam Pickett bought his time, did a great job with Gary Guthrie at Rome. And just, I think you said it earlier. Sometimes, the younger generation thinks they're ready, but what makes you ready is that time, time to learn. And I think the journey that I traveled, I had no choice. If I was going to succeed, I had to keep my mouth shut and learn.
Well, and even you said you weren't ready. Even when you said it earlier in the conversation that when you did get your shots, you were like, well, I really wasn't ready. Because there's things that happen that you're just not prepared for.
Right. Exactly.
On one hand, it's like, well, there's only one way for you to learn, and that's baptism by fire. But the more experience you can have dealing with administration, as you said, and dealing with community and learning, because the football's not that I think too many young guys think that being the head coach is all about the football part of it. The football is the least of your concerns when you're the head football coach.
Yep.
At least in my opinion. I mean,
you're exactly right.
I mean, I tell people all the time, they're like, why don't you take a head football coaching job? I'm like, because I could be the CEO. I could be really good at that. And I'd hire an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, and I'd just wander around on the sideline on Friday nights because I would take care of all the other stuff. And I wouldn't be coaching football, because to me, that's what it is these days.
Right. And that's one of, when you'd asked me earlier, when I went to that private school, I went back to coaching football now.
And having fun.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. You know what I'm saying? There's the three of us. Our coaches' meetings were short, but they were to the point. You know what I mean? And, and we were all on the same page, and 3 people on the same page heading the same direction is a lot better than 14 and 4 of them. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it just got overwhelming, and it still comes back to, and when I hire coaches, I say, guys, here's the deal. We're not going to agree in this room, but when we walk out of this room, we're all on the same page. Because if there's a crack in the concrete, somebody's going to find it. And that somebody's going to plant a seed, and then we're all in trouble. And I've been fortunate. I've had great staffs.
And it all started with the very first staff you were on.
Exactly.
And it's amazing that, and I think that's something too you learn from. I mean, you learn from looking around on that first staff, and you're like, all right, this is the way I want it when I get to do, or, try to get it when I'd have my first one.
Right. I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. I tell my son that now, who's coaching. To me, that, one of my greatest joys is both my kids are coaching, and I enjoy going to watch them coach. And, sometimes I have to keep my mouth shut because I'm going, what are you doing? I told him the other day, I said, I like this position. He said, what? I said, I can be in the stands hollering at you. I've got a lot of practice at that. And he'll just start laughing. But,
I laugh all the time at these young coaches that think they've invented something or coming up with something. I'm like, guys, we're the biggest copycats in the history of ever. We're not doing anything new. It's just you wait for it to go away, and then it comes back, and then you dress it up and call it something different. And there's been very few innovations, at least in my 50 years, that have changed the game of football. Very few.
Well, when I have my parent meetings, you talking about that. When I have my parent meeting, I always use this line. I think I got it from Ken Brazel. I said, parents, I need your help. I said, if you know of a playbook out there that guarantees 10 wins, if we run this offense, you're guaranteed to win 10 ball games. And you know where that playbook is, where I can buy it, let me know. Because there hasn't been one invented that I know of, because if they do, it's going to be a bestseller, $1 million investment. I said, because at the end of the day, if you're single wing, too tight, hammering it, or you're at spread, if your players can't do it, there's no perfect offense. There's no perfect defense. I can remember, I think it was old Ralph Regent at Georgia Tech, and they were asking him, now, Coach, this year going in, what's going to be your run-pass ratio? He said, if they can't stop the run, it's going to be 100-0. If they can't stop the pass, it's going to be 100 pass to nothing. He said, I can't walk into a game and say, well, I'm going to be 50-50 run-pass.
Yeah.
And I look at old Ralph Regent as being old school.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't, especially high school. We don't know what them jokers are going to do. You don't know what they're going to do between second period and third period, much less
exactly
week to week.
Right.
We're dealing with teenage boys. Who knows what they're going to do?
Right. I can remember Kim Brazel and me. We go down to Florida State to a big clinic, and Bobby Bowden, great guy. Bobby Bowden says, coaches, I want to thank you. I take my hat off to you, blah, blah, blah. He said, you know what y'all's hardest problem is? The parents, y'all take a test every Friday night. Every Friday night, y'all have to take a test in front of 1,000 to 8,000 people. But the problem is they don't know how you've had to study Monday through Thursday. They don't know that your quarterback's grandmother died on Monday. Or, or your starting center's broke up with his girlfriend who he's been dating for, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
those people in the stands, they don't understand all that.
And don't care.
Exactly. And he said, but yet you're going to be graded on a test on Friday, but they don't know how you've had to study Monday through. And that's that little nugget I got. I said, that's right. And when you become a head coach, that magnifies tremendously. It'd be hard pressed for me to find a head coach that hasn't had to deal with, I just got beat Friday night. Saturday, things are going good, and then I get that call Sunday where Johnny's dad's beat his mom. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you've got all these problems. Well, you know what? Losing that game Friday, that doesn't matter right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it really ain't that big of a deal.
Exactly. This is about, hey, what can I do for you, Johnny? You get that phone call. Hey, Coach, we took Roderick home and we dropped him off. He didn't go in the house. We don't know where he went. Now there's something not right.
Right.
So, there's a lot more to coaching.
Yeah.
I've always had this saying that you got to love them, but you got to love them more. You got to coach them, but you got to love them more. And, always love on them because you don't know if that's going to be the kid only thing that kid really can grasp onto.
Well, Coach, I'm glad you've been loving on them for 39 years. And like you said, you didn't know if you were ever going to quit coaching, and I hope you don't. I hope you keep doing what you love, and I sure do appreciate you coming on with us and sharing your story with us because we need nuggets. We need as many nuggets from guys like you as we can get.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I'm old school. I like to talk now. I love to talk football.
Well, Coach, I sure do appreciate having you.
All right. Thank you.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.